Hello, everyone. I am Sean Forbes. I'm the chair of the California National Party, bringing to you another great episode of Free the Bear, our podcast for the California National Party. I'm joined here with Bill Scoggs, our NorCal chapter coordinator. And what we're talking about today is always kind of connected to our platform. One of our chief planks of the platform is that the Senate is not very representative for California. Just to give you kind of an idea, there's a little brief statistic here. California has only two senators, right? That's everyone knows that from the U.S. Constitution. But there are over 42 other senators in the other part of the Senate that represent 1.2 million fewer people than the entirety of California. So 42 American state senators, two California senators. So the Senate, again, is lopsided and turned against us. Again, we don't have a lot of room to maneuver, obviously, even though we're basically a nation state of 40 million people, bigger than Canada, also a stronger economy than Canada by a large margin, actually a stronger economy than Germany. And so we're represented by two senators, and one right now is hitting the news a lot. That is Diane Feinstein, age 89 years old. She's been in the Senate since 1992. She came to prominence basically through the Board of Supervisors of San Francisco. Most famously, she took over after the assassination of Harvey Milk and the mayor at that time. And from there, she's reached up the ladder. She's got quite a good net worth at the moment, about $85 million that she's managed to accumulate over the years. And Dianne Feinstein has also been one who has stepped forward to make sure that we still have the Patriot Act, and also made sure that she wants everyone to know that cannabis should still be illegal. And right now, she's been stricken with shingles. She is basically out of the Senate. Again, still part of it, but not a part of it because, again, she is recuperating for the last, quite a few months. And right now, the business of the Democrats trying to install judges to have a counterweight to the Trump judges from before has completely stalled because she cannot actually resign. That's up to her. People are asking her to. Actually, her own party is asking her to. Her own party is actually trying to set up a vote to actually make sure that she's replaced, at least temporarily, on the Judiciary Committee for the Senate. Republicans have blocked that. And even Nancy Pelosi, from her own kind of semi-retirement, has said that it was sexist to even question why would we actually want to have Dianne Feinstein at age 89, stricken ill, resign from the Senate. So we are in I would say, minor constitutional crisis, and at least definitely a crisis of representation for the state of California. Mr. Bill, I think you have a few things to say about this interesting subject that's come across.
It's interesting nationally, and it's interesting for Californians. I'll focus on the California part first. As you said, we are tremendously underrepresented in the Senate. And beyond the constitutional functions of a senator, your representative is supposed to be the person who, if you have a problem maybe with a corporation, or there's a problem, you are stuck in another country and you're in an embassy, you need to get in touch with your senator or elected representatives. We only have one now in California because Dianne Feinstein, she has severe cognitive issues. If she wants to sue me, she's more than welcome to take the stand and prove me wrong. But I mean, the reports are out there that she is not remembering people's names that she's known for years. And the Republicans, as you were talking about the judiciary, trying to get her off of that seat, they're not going to let her. They are going to stop that. So we are not going to get sensible judges. I'm not going to say good judges. I'm going to say sensible judges, because Biden can't approve them, because Dianne Feinstein's ego will not allow her to leave office. Much like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Democrats, I hate to say it more than Republicans, hate to leave office. They will not take that lobbying job like most Republicans will. If you look at the average age of Democrats, it's in the Senate, it's startling. I forget the number. I think it's 60s. Ridiculous. And there's a
It's
lot.
mostly again like it's in the high 60s, and again, actually, most of the oldest ones are from the Democratic Party. So yes, again, that is. I mean, Feinstein is the oldest. Bernie Sanders, who again independent but basically a Democrat at this point. Again, the list goes on. It's mostly Democrats.
And you know what? I'm not even going to be ageist. I know I brought this up to you before in conversation. Why can't we have elected officials take basic, basic, a basic mental test to say, like, hey, you are fit to pull a lever or to do basic functions. I'm not talking like IQ tests or, um, taking a civics test. I would love all these things, but I'm realistic. Just basic cognitive. We have a lot.
Well, why not? I mean, it's just like actually, if you think about it for a moment, is that age really is, lack of a better cliche, is just a number. I have no doubt that the cognitive abilities of a Bernie Sanders is top notch. I've
Yeah,
seen.
he's sharp. He's as sharp mentally. I mean, let's be honest. His energy is down as it should be as he gets older, but his mind
Yeah.
is, yeah, absolutely as sharp as a blade.
Again, number, that's a number. Again, I get it, but I think that whatever your age is and whatever your, status is, if you're serving in the federal government on such a high level, you should be tested. There is a way to have a nonpartisan means of doing this. There's not something where I don't believe it should be arbitrary because, like, for example, if you said that there has to be a mandatory retirement at age, 70, well, again, Bernie would have been out quite a while ago. And I think that he does have some valuable input to give to the United States Senate. So you do, again, I don't believe in arbitrariness, but again, the fact that there's something going on with her, and it's already been reported multiple times, and now she's this, pretty much a ghost at this point in the Senate. I don't see why there's any kind of argument. I don't even believe that's even like an ideological litmus test at this point.
and
Draw
it's
the clock. I want to see that happen. I want to see like, taking normal answer or questions and answering them. And then
and,
again, yeah.
and let's be honest. Like, we could even cite our president, Joe Biden, doesn't do a lot of interviews. Like, it's American. I guess you know what, Californians. I won't say Americans. I guess anyone deserves to have elected officials who are competent, who can do the basic functions. And we as Californians don't have that right now. And I
No,
guess
because we're already crippled at this point. Again, like at the beginning of the show, I said that again, there's 42 senators who represent less than 1.2 million people compared to the entire state of California, and we only have just two, and one's pretty much checked out. So we're down to one. So that's a
yeah.
terrible arrangement for any kind of votes that actually represent our interests whatsoever. I mean, it was already bad. Now it's this. I don't know. It was already catastrophic. Now it's just even more terribly catastrophic. If there could be a higher level beyond this.
And there's a lot of her political issues that we could talk about, and I guess we will later. But to me, on the California level, what I'm finding the most interesting, I think people have talked about the California Democratic Civil War that's happening now between establishment Democrats. I'm going to call them the Nancy Pelosi pro-choice Republicans, and what I would actually call a Democrat. And I say this to people, anyone who's listening to this is to the left probably of every elected official in California, maybe except for Barbara Lee, who you could say is a real, like, super real deal progressive. But we have to acknowledge that there are levels to the Democratic Party. There is the Diane Feinstein Republican, and even a person like Ro Khanna, who, not perfect by any means, but clearly is more progressive than a Diane Feinstein. And that is where the Civil War is happening now. And what I think is interesting.
And this person, like, too, is that it is very interesting. And you just name drop someone who has been accused of being a sexist, or even bringing up having the temerity to ask, like, we should actually have a senator actually in the chambers actually doing their job.
By the way,
and again,
he's endorsing Barbara Lee for senator. So he He's a big time sexist who's endorsing a woman for the Senate.
Yeah, so again, that was a complete BS attack by Nancy Pelosi, and this is kind of how the Democrats run in California. The Democratic Party, really, I believe strongly in California, is not really a party. It is a loose, coalition of factions that are basically anti-Republican. Now, they could be on social issues or they could be on economic ones, but they're just not on board with being a Republican. But there is no real true party. There is an establishment that kind of maintains a tenuous hold at all times. And really, they basically are just Republicans as well. But again, they can't make that jump to becoming GOP. The other thing that they do is this with that, again, like the attack, saying that, again, it was sexist to even, question why, again, Diane Feinstein wasn't around. I mean, that's kind of like their go-to. They really don't have anything to offer. Kind of like in a way is kind of a mirror universe of the Republicans. They don't really have anything to offer except kind of this culture war tropes that they can trot out to beat down the opposition. They just do it in a different way. But again, it's all culture war. It's just, again, like, easy identity politics, pretty thoughtless, mean-spirited. And again, which I think that for a lot of people outside California makes the Democrats despised in so many areas is because that's all they do as well.
Oh, and it's absolutely a use of propaganda by the Republicans when they, anytime Nancy Pelosi, calls someone sexist because they're avoiding it, Nancy doesn't want to address economic or legislative issues. Yeah, it has become the rallying cry for Republicans is, Democrats will just call you sexist. And I want to
racist or something, yes.
Yeah, Diane Feinstein does not represent California. And when I say even politically, and what I mean by that is California is a supermajority Democratic state. So like it's not a Republican. But California voted for Bernie Sanders in the primaries two times in a row. Diane Feinstein does not represent us. Now, I wish there would be someone like a Michael Loebs or Sean Forbes West to represent us, but I can be content with Barbara Lee's, with Katie Porter's, with Ro Khanna's. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. But I at least look at them as representing the average of the California, if you were to average everyone's political leanings, I think you would land somewhere between Ro Khanna and Katie Porter in California. Whereas if you went to somewhere in the rest of the United States, say like a Minnesota or a Wisconsin or a Michigan, they would probably lean more towards a Nancy Pelosi or Diane Feinstein. But
it doesn't. Well, I mean, it's just the names you try it out to. I mean, these are people who, at least I would say, is in the family almost, because there's more agreements than disagreements. At least, again, there is kind of a California worldview that, again, I would say they minimize because they're already Democrats. They're already kind of giving themselves over to the machine to a certain degree. They don't embrace, exactly what it is to be Californian fully, but at the same time, too, you can't really just dismiss them completely and say that like they're so far out of field that, again, like, you can't recognize them whatsoever. I can't recognize. I mean, for example, her stuff with the Patriot Act, and then her always attacking cannabis laws, which basically already California has effectively, de facto, whatever, seceded from the union when it comes to the enforcement of cannabis laws. It just doesn't, again, we're on a totally different page. And it's actually, in my mind, so amazing that, there hasn't been a larger constitutional crisis when you have a whole state, and the big one, 40 million people, largest economy largest economy in the United States, larger than Germany, etc., has basically just said, that law that the central government did, yeah, whatever. We're not doing anything with that. She goes against it. She's always said cannabis was a gateway drug, and how absolutely ridiculous that is.
Well, if you are in the 2000s supporting capital punishment, you should not be allowed to be in the Democratic Party. I'm sorry. Like, I say this as someone not even in the Democratic Party, to the left of them. how can you tolerate in the 2000s as a Democrat someone who supported the death penalty, which she did? And we've talked, the Patriot Act. I mean, that she she is more zealous when it comes to that kind of stuff than most Republicans. She is all about spying on people. That is something that she came in right away, and she's been all about that. The one thing we haven't talked about yet when it comes to her, and I think, I mean, to me, it's her biggest sin. She and her husband have been having a threesome with the almond industry for the last 30, 40 years. Anytime that, I mean, it's hard to say now because we just had a lot of rain and we have a super bloom and everything's going great. But for those last 10, 15 years, all those fires and those droughts, she is the one that I would say is most responsible for those more than any other human being living. He was the biggest supporter of the Central Valley Project Improvement Act. I just learned that name a few days ago, truth be told. I knew all the things behind it where they dammed up things. They gave the almond industry so much free water. She supports privatizing water, by the way. She is is it Nestle? She's in bed with them. She's in bed with the almond industry. Her and Nancy Pelosi are brilliant stock traders. They're brilliant. They're so brilliant. I started to follow their trading methods. But yeah,
their net worth speak for themselves. For again, public servants. Even if you're again been in some kind of government public sector job in a normal fashion for say even 40 years, you're not making the kind of money that they have squirreled away. I mean, this is no way unless you know something or know somebody who knows something. The corruption is open. Pelosi and her, way too much money involved. This would be oh, well, I just made a couple really kind of good trades here and there. I dabble.
Bull. Oh, she was investigated in 2020 when they were going after all the Republicans, but she was the one lone Democrat. Now, she was acquitted, obviously, but that's because they've made laws so it's legal to do insider trading. I say this as a person who copies their trades and does it as a living. For those she's made, I think, well, to be fair, her husband is the brilliant trader. She has nothing to do with it. It just happens every time.
Bill, I would just stop you there for a second. Nothing to do with it. Wink. I mean, it's just you never talk to your wife about this stuff. The money comes in and you just go, I don't know.
You know what? I'm going to give her the benefit that no. Yeah, of course she's her. Feinstein and Pelosi's husband are just sitting around doing insider trading, drinking wine, having a good old time. Well, actually, her husband, Feinstein's husband, died in 2022, but they had a good time for many decades.
Yeah, it wasn't like the 85 million came in the last 5 months after the old man. No. The thing is that, there is a theme here. One is that they call themselves Democrats. They inflict a little bit of social issues every once in a while, just out of blue moon, basically to shut up people. But they're corrupt. They do inside trading. They don't care about the local environment of California. They don't give a damn about California values. But you have so many Californians who are Democrats who say you always got to vote blue no matter who. And what a line of BS that is at this point. Because honestly, again, I don't know if there's just some kind of weird programming thing with some cultural programming with certain people, but I would never vote for Republican ever. Especially more so now. Maybe back in 1999, 2000, maybe. And I'm not for George W., but I'm just saying any other Republican, maybe. But there is other parties. California National Party, for example. But again, Green, Peace and Freedom, hell, even a Libertarian is somebody who isn't just entrenched in this kind of hack system. And again, just, mouthing kind of platitudes with nothing to show for it.
I don't know how you can be a public servant and then get $85 million and sleep at night. I just don't understand. And this just shows you how far this country has gone. Nobody goes into Congress or any elected office in America with the goal to help people anymore. Only person they want to help is themselves and their corporate sponsors.
Yeah, someone, I forget where I saw this, if I heard this or read this. It wasn't my original thought, but it kind of stuck with me recently. Is that public office at this point is really a misnomer because no one really is in there because they're representing the public. They're representing a faction or interest group of some kind. And we're basically just kind of doing a rating system like, well, it's not so bad to, oh my God, it's completely awful.
And Diane Feinstein really, and her trail is pretty clear as to see who she is beholden to. She is beholden to tech companies. She is beholden to the Central Valley agricultural machine. Those are the only two groups she cares about. Well, at this point, she doesn't care about anyone because, she's got such severe shingles that it's hard for her to really concentrate on anything. That's why she hasn't been in office, because of her shingles. Nothing to do with her mind, mind you.
Yeah, the mind thing again, how dare we even talk about that? No, it's just I think the reason why the Democrats are always in kind of getting these weird situations where they have people who are either second stringers, maybe too long in the tooth, maybe not cognitively all the way there. I think the reason why they kind of stick around is because the Democrat establishment is so terrified to let go of even an inch of anything because they feel that there could be an uprising with the left wing of the Democrats to take over and actually do something. I mean, I think that's the reason why we got Biden, for instance, too. I think Biden was Biden was never a great candidate. I mean, he was already had his campaign destroyed, basically twice. He was really just again like he was the last one they had left. He was the last, onion in the jar, basically, and they had to. Otherwise, they could have Bernie, or they could have had some other kind of left-wing alternative at that point. And I think they're always just terrified of that, and that's why they're getting these people in their positions sticking around, is because they just don't know where exactly it could go. I would say that's the same thing with Ginsburg too. Why she was in there for so long. I mean, partially, I think it was part of her ego. Yeah, which applies to like Feinstein and Biden, for example, too. I think to a certain degree. But I think also there was some kind of feeling that you didn't know who the other quantity could be to take over. They weren't a set property at this point, and I think they're always terrified about that now, especially more so. And it kind of reminds me of like the last days of the Soviet Union when they started trotting out Russian leaders who are just collapsing and dying left and right, is because they just didn't know what exactly the X factor could be in a takeover.
Yes, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to not even change topics, but just go to another question I had for you and something that's interesting to me. Gavin Newsom has already said if he was going to replace Senator Dianne Feinstein, he would do it with an African-American woman. It's interesting that he says that, but he doesn't say a specific name of the person that he would replace them with. That seems to me, if you're not giving a specific name, that just seems like that is Democratic placating to people and trying to show them, hey, look at how cool and hip and progressive and good we are, without actually like any substance. Like I don't get why he wouldn't just say who he would replace the person with rather than just their gender and ethnicity. That just seems very, very Democrat, liberal, cheesy, disingenuous.
It is, because I think that, I mean, there is something to be said strongly that, the United States Senate and the Congress is, the least diverse institution on the planet. I mean, it's older and white and more older. So, I mean, like, having someone of a different background who actually kind of, reflects major demographics in the country is important. But like you said, they don't really give a name. So again, the empty suit kind of thing can really kind of kick in. And Democrats just like to play the identity politics. We're all supposed to clap because, again, they have someone who is from a different background than the majority of the Congress. But it doesn't really matter if they're just going to copy and paste already kind of paternalistic pro ultra white politics. I mean, it's just,
as a white upper middle class man, I feel Kamala Harris represents me way more than she represents African Americans.
I would say that too, especially how she treated so many people with truancies and went after families and things like that. I mean, she again would just seem like every kind of like white cop who just did not care about the neighborhoods they're policing. So again, I don't see there's any difference whatsoever. Again, it's just really it's that cheap identity politics thing that Democrats like to do because like Republicans, they really don't have answers for most of what's happening, especially what's happening in California and the rest of the country. So what they do is that they kind of, Democrats will bring out identity politics, like, Nancy Pelosi saying it was sexist to question Feinstein, or, again, they'll do the kind of, diversity hires basically. And then that's pretty much about it. But it's just a kind of a mere version of like Republicans talking about like weird social things that they all of a sudden have like a hard on about, something about drag queens or again, like, all these kind of like red meat social issues. This is again, it's major distractions. It doesn't really accomplish, the everyday things that people need to have accomplished, especially again, California has so many issues, and it's just that if you're just going to put in another corporate hack who has a different skin color, it doesn't help a damn thing.
It's so sad and true. And when we're talking about the Senate, there's an interesting policy the California National Party has. By the way, if you want to check out our policies, californianational.party, proportional representation in the state Senate, which I actually am a huge fan of. The idea that you vote for the Senate for a party and not a person. I know that angers a lot of independents. I'm sorry, deal with it. You're going to just have to pick a party for the Senate. But you could actually get coalition in California. Imagine Peace and Freedom getting 2 senators, California National Party getting 2 senators, the Libertarians getting 4. I'll be generous and say they get 4. You could actually start building coalitions in California where you could actually get Medi-Cal for all onto the floor for a vote. I know that sounds outrageous. Why can't you have them on the have Medi-Cal for all as a floor vote right now? You have a Democratic majority. Exactly why you'll never get a vote for Medi-Cal for all, because they would be forced to actually vote for it or not vote for it. They don't want that because they do not want to. They would much rather support corporations and the private insurance industry than actually help sick Californians. So, and that's another, Diane Feinstein, a big supporter of expanding the Affordable Care Act, which is code for corporate private insurance screw people. So you don't actually have either senator right now. Neither supports neither supports a single payer system. None support Medicare for all. So you're stuck with in this, the 2 California senators right now are basically moderate Republicans from the 1990s.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, again, the Democratic Party doesn't really exist. It just exists as, coalition of factions that are just opposed to Republicans, and that's about it. And the establishment ones are pretty much the ones who are the top dogs right now. And they're never really going to do anything else except to make sure that people just don't vote Republican. And so they'll stick in their positions and they'll have diversity hires, and that's pretty much about it. And again, like it's the Democratic Party, how it runs California is not very democratic. There is a multitude of different opinions about the state. I mean, California always gets launched into this, like, this is an ultra liberal state. And I guess in some ways compared to the Deep South, sure. But I mean, that's such a weird bar to get over. But there is, you go around, you go to your neighbors, you talk to people on the street, and no one really, normal people have way different opinions than just like, I'm a Democrat. They really, again, it's more nuanced. Again, a lot of people are registered Democrats just because, again, they can't stand Republicans. But there is between conservative Democrats to socialists, or again, like, people who have total disgust with the 2-party system, the Greens, Peace and Freedom. There is, again, a plethora of opinions, and we just don't see that. And the Democrats never really embrace that or even talk about it, and they don't care about it. They obviously don't care because they never try to fix about the lopsidedness that we only get 2 senators. I've never seen a real push for Democrats to try to address that. I've never seen a real push by Democrats going like, hey, we got the super majority. Maybe we should try to open up the Democratic field, lower D Democratic field, to other parties, other voices, just like they do in other developed countries where they have multiple parties who exist in coalitions or work out issues and actually focus on issues. That, again, the Democrats never care about that. They just want to be empowered. They still want to be Republicans, and that's pretty much about it. There is not anything else that will change except that every once in a while they'll have someone who comes from a different background than the majority in Congress, and we're all supposed to clap.
I guess we can leave on this final thought about Republicans and Democrats, but Republicans will take you 3 steps to the right, and then when the Democrats get in control, they'll move 1 step back towards the center, and then the Republicans will go 3 steps to the right again. It's been happening since 1980. I would be curious, other than the social issues, where Mitt Romney and Diane Feinstein disagree on economically, or when it comes to like foreign policy. I think if you took out abortion and guns and gay rights, you would not be able to tell the difference between her policies and Mitt Romney's.
No, I would say that's actually could almost go down the line, to be honest. Not just Feinstein, but a lot of others too, in the Democratic Party. Yeah, it's just like, I mean, California has been done a great disservice by our constitutional framework, and an even greater disservice by the fact that even in the limited confines of that framework, we have someone who is, quote unquote, got shingles and is away from everything, which is screwing up, at least some kind of redressing the balance of like the judges, between. I mean, I'm not saying that Democrat Biden judges are the greatest thing, but compared to, the right wing, people that Trump put in, like the ones who are trying to take away abortion rights.
I'll even go as far, not even ideologically. Trump appointed super young, super unqualified judges, knowing that these are lifetime appointments. Biden was at least picking judges who know the system. I guess that's maybe not the best way to put it, but actually know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a choice between, a brown shirt and City Hall. It's just like you don't really like either, but you know that the brown shirt's a really bad idea. I'd rather Mayor Daley run things than, Joseph Goebbels.
On that note, I am going to eat some almonds and drink some wine and try to forget that I live in America and remember that I live in California.
Absolutely. Well, you have a great evening. Good talking to you, Bill. And always thanks to Red Star and Hal and KPFK. Also, again, if you're interested more in our policies and what we're talking about, please visit our website, californianational.party. That's californianational.party. And thank you for listening to another episode of Free the Bear with DCMP.